Good day and welcome everyone to the second part of the video tutorial for our strategy RPG Tactics Maiden. Before we'll have a closer look at the ally camp, there are a few things I forgot to mention in the first part of the tutorial. First of all, you can change your unit's default skill by right-clicking on it, respectively using a long tab in the mobile version. Whenever you select the unit afterwards, the newly set default skill is automatically selected. You can undo this at any time by reassigning the attack button as a default. Be aware that setting a default skill only affects this particular unit, so it's not automatically applied to all units of the same class. The second thing I didn't mention was how to use area of effect skills, also called AoE skills for short. These skills can hit more than one unit, depending on how the AoE zone is positioned. The red frames mark all positions that are affected by the AoE skill. While you can switch on friendly fire via game options, it's inactive by default, so you don't have to worry about killing your own units or healing enemy units by mistake. On top of that, if the player uses an aggressive AoE skill to target friendly units only, the game automatically prevents executing the skill. Once you have selected a unit's AoE skill, it's not always possible to move the unit to a specific spot with a left click any longer. That's because left clicks are now used to position the center of the AoE zone instead. There's a simple workaround, however. Just use a right click instead to move a unit to any spot you'd like. Once more, in the mobile version, the same thing is accomplished by a long tab. Alright, so what happens if you retreat from a scenario? The good news is that you will keep all experience and loot gained from opponents. The bad news is that you cannot keep anything you found in treasure chests. There's just not enough time to carry all that stuff away. In general, you are better off with retreating in time rather than being defeated. The reason is quite simple. If you are defeated, you lose all the progress you've made during this scenario, including gained experience. Once you've retreated from battle, you have basically two choices. Either you go straight to the ally camp in order to improve your army and continue with any of the available scenarios, or you repeat the previous scenario right away. In the PC version, you can retry the exact same scenario setup again. So all outpost and pillar positions are the same, as well as the class types of spawned opponents. Alternatively, you can create an entire new setup with a few variations for a slightly different challenge. You can even play the exact same setup as someone else, for example a friend, if you know the seed number of this scenario setup. You can see and change this seed number after clicking on the header image. Alright, let's have a closer look at the ally camp. Whenever you finish a scenario, you'll end up right here. This is the place where you can hire or release mercenaries, buy or sell items, equip your units, and distribute skill points to further improve or specialize your units. Let's talk about mercenaries first. If you want to use the services of a mercenary, you'll have to pay a one-time fee first. Once this fee has been paid, you can release and rehire the unit as often as you want. The only reason to release a unit, however, would be to avoid clutter or making space if the maximum unit capacity has been reached. But on normal difficulty, this most likely won't happen. Now, the question is, should you hire all available mercenaries? Definitely not. First of all, money is scarce early on, and sometimes you're just better off spending your silver on equipment instead. More importantly, as long as you haven't hired a unit yet, the unit keeps training and its level is rising automatically over the course of the game. Once a unit has been hired, it doesn't train automatically any longer, and the only way to increase its experience level is by using it in combat. This won't even change if you temporarily release the unit. As a rule of thumb, you should only buy a unit if you really intend to use it. However, if there's a new class that you haven't tried out yet, definitely go for it. On the world map, you can choose the next scenario you want to play. You can have a peek at the reward already and also consider whether the enemy level is more than you can chew at the moment. Scenarios with a red marker are main story scenarios and they usually have an ID below 100. Green map markers are depicting side quests with an ID above 100. And finally, there are purple colored markers for repeatable scenarios, which can be used for trying out new classes, new strategies, or just for some XP grinding, although the later one is really not necessary. New scenarios are unlocked independent of the game progress, and you are free to play them in any order you see fit. If your army is in a good shape, you'll see a green exclamation mark, which is basically telling you that everything is fine. A yellow question mark is a hint that you've got better equipment in your inventory and that your units should make use of these items. A red question mark is a warning that some of your units have unspent skill points, something that is definitely wasting their potential. Once you tap on the Optimize Army icon, you'll basically have two choices. You can either manually check on your units one by one, or you can let the computer do all the optimization for you. There's no guarantee, of course, that your particular playstyle is optimally supported by the computer's choices. You can rest assured, however, these selections are not just arbitrary picks, but they are based on well-defined class templates. Personally, I'm doing a mix of both usually, taking care of my favorite units manually and auto-optimizing the rest of the gang afterwards. There are two buttons for optimizing your equipment, and there's a subtle difference between both. The first button is kind of a careful, restricted optimization where the computer does not mess around with the player's item type choices. This basically means that items aren't replaced if any of the attributes would get worse. For instance, an 80k plus 3 power plus 1 item is not replaced with an 80k plus 5 item, because the power attribute would get worse. There's one drawback of this optimization method too. There is a chance that better equipment remains in your inventory even after optimization. And that's why there is a second button for brute force optimization. It's not as bad as it sounds, because in this case a restricted optimization is done first and only the remaining items are distributed more forcefully. In case you prefer careful, restricted optimizations, but the remaining question mark is annoying you, there's a way you can fix that via game options. I'll show you what I mean. If you go to Settings and Gameplay and click on this button here, you now have switched to the Optimize Keep Type mode. And now you can see that the question mark is gone. Alright, the armory shows all the items you've got in your inventory. An item is called obsolete if all of your units have a better item equipped already. You can sell this item then, or just keep it if you prefer. If there are units that can make good use of an item, the name of the unit that would benefit the most is shown in the list. Once you click on an item, every unit that can wear this item is listed. You'll also see the change for each unit if this item were equipped. The blue color shows a general improvement, the red color shows an overall deterioration, and the white color indicates there's no difference at all. You can right-click a unit to have a look at its equipment, or you can close the panel to cancel the action, or you just click on one of the units to equip the item. In the armory, you can also sell and buy items, which is really straightforward, so you can figure that out on your own. In theory, that's all you need. You hire a mercenary now and then, buy or sell equipment if need be, optimize your army with a few clicks, and then you're ready to start the next scenario. That being said, it's probably more satisfying if you tinker with your units manually, and that's what the button Your Units is meant for. You can see all of the available units in the unit pool, and you can sort them in various ways. Once you've selected a unit, you have several options. First of all, you can rename a unit by clicking on its name. This is also possible for your main characters, by the way. If you click on a unit's portrait, you can see a few unit statistics that are tracked during a scenario. The next thing you can see over here is the unit's class ability. Each class has its own class ability, which is basically just a passive trait that is improving the unit in one way or another. This class ability can be of permanent nature, like Bane of Archers, that always grants 20% additional damage against bow units. It can also have a temporary benefit only, like the class ability Berserker Rage, where a unit deals more damage if its own hit points are down to 1/3. There are rare items that grant a class ability to every unit that can equip the item, so that's a nice way to gain abilities from other classes as well. The main functionality of the stats panel is distributing skill points, however. Let me quickly reset all skill points for this unit first, so it's easier to show how this works. The only way to earn skill points in Tactics Maiden is achieving a new experience level. Every uneven level your units get 2 skill points, and every even level they get 1 skill point. You can use these skill points to either improve your attributes or your skills. Each attribute or skill has 4 ranks. Rank 0 means there are no skill points invested at all. For rank 1 you need 1 skill point, for rank 2 you need 2 additional skill points, and for rank 3 you need 3 additional skill points. In other words, to maximize a skill or attribute you need 1 plus 2 plus 3 skill points, so that's 6 skill points in total. On lower levels you don't have many skill points available, so you are usually better off spreading them more widely. For example, having 2 rank 2 skills instead of 1 rank 3 skill. At higher levels it's usually the other way around, and you might be better off having just a few maximized attributes or skills. The only exception is the attribute movement range. You need a minimum of rank 3 in order to increase your movement by 1, so everything below rank 3 is just a waste of skill points. You can add or subtract skill points by using the plus or minus button. For the PC version, these buttons are not needed though. You can just left-click on a skill or attribute to increase its rank, or right-click to decrease its rank. As long as a unit is not on the battlefield, you can reset and redistribute skill points as often as you like. As a matter of fact, preparing and specializing a few of your units before a particular difficult scenario is a common activity. If you are unsure how to make good use of your skill points, you can simply try the button Distribute Skill Points. Once more, this isn't just an arbitrary, randomized distribution, but it takes all the class specifics into consideration. Alright, if you click on the Inventory tab, we can check on this unit's equipment. Aside from animals, all amulets and boots can be worn by any class. The same is not the case for weapons and armor. Each unit can only use one of the 4 weapon types: sword, spear, staff, and bow. In the same way, each unit is tied to one of 3 armor types, either cloth armor, leather armor, or metal armor. There are 3 different item qualities: standard items with a yellow label, rare items with a blue label, and finally legendary items with a purple label. All standard items can be bought in shops, and these shops even offer 1 or 2 rare items now and then. Other ways of obtaining items are random enemy drops that are granted after defeating an enemy, treasure chests, stealing with the help of skills like Mug and Purse Shot, as well as scenario rewards. A red arrow like this one simply tells you that there's better equipment in your inventory. The X symbol is used to unequip a single item, while unequip all removes all items in one go. With Optimize, you can automatically equip the best item from your inventory. If you prefer to choose the unit's equipment manually, however, just click on one of the items. The list popping up shows all the items this particular unit can equip. If you click 2 times on an item, this item will be equipped. A red arrow marks an item that's worse than the corresponding item you've currently equipped. A green arrow shows an item that is better than the one you've currently equipped. You can also see how the unit's attributes would change in case you equip the currently selected item. Buying and selling items is possible on this panel as well, and it should be fairly easy to figure out how this works. The last available option we haven't talked about yet is called unit equipment. Well, actually there's nothing new here, because this is just a convenient shortcut to avoid 3 clicks. 1, 2, 3. So you might wonder, what's the difference between the armory and equip units? In theory, equip units has got everything you need. You can change the equipment of every single unit, you can sell items from your inventory, and you can also buy new items. The armory is basically just a nice add-on, a convenient way to get an overview of your inventory and to sell or distribute all the items you have collected but haven't used so far. Okay, let's just wrap up the tutorial with a few final words of advice. Some of the scenarios are quite tough, even on default difficulty, and figuring out various ways to win is part of the fun. Unlike in similar strategy titles, defeating as many enemies as possible is not always the best approach. Instead, Tactics Maiden is all about unit positioning and fighting over every single inch on the battlefield. In most cases, a too defensive approach results in a disaster. At some point, you must take the initiative and conquer enemy pillars and outposts. Otherwise, you'll either be overrun or locked in a tie with your opponent, and the battle goes on forever. As a matter of fact, getting out of a draw plays a central role in the game's tactics. You can do so by outflanking enemies, feinting attacks, sneaking past enemy lines, summoning minions behind the enemy's back, or using skills like swap plays, which can be used to change a unit's position even with enemies. Alright, that's it. I really hope this has been helpful. Bye bye and enjoy the game.